Venezuela, the government offered a report of the progress of the Catatumbo lighting operation aimed at fighting drug trafficking and organized crime. Russia and Cuba signed agreements on cooperation in health and science within the framework of the 65th anniversary of the reestablishment of diplomatic relations between the two nations. And the Palestinian Prisoners Club denounced on Friday that Israeli prison authorities have increased torture and ill treatments of Palestinian detainees since the end of the ceasefire in Gaza on March the 18th. Hello and welcome to From the South, the Marama from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Venezuela, the Minister of Interior, Justice and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, held a press conference to report on the progress of the Catatumbo lighting operation aimed at fighting drug trafficking and organized crime. Precisely, Cabello informed on the seizure of 16,308 kilos of cocaine from Colombia, adding that detainees made confessions that allow locating the drug trafficking routes and seize of boats. Furthermore, the minister denounced the role of the extreme right-wing opposition in financing this operation, fabricating lies regarding crimes in the country, and promoting a false flag operation to incriminate the armed forces. He also informed that more than 400 aircraft have been destroyed since Venezuela broke off relations with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency.
Adding it all up to 9,000 in the following operations, 9,866 from before, plus the 6,441 that I am announcing now, gives a total of 16,308 kilos and 10 grams of cocaine of the highest purity.
On Friday morning, 208 Venezuelan migrants arrived in the country as part of the Back to the Homeland plan. With this flight, there are now more than 2,000 Venezuelan nationals that have returned in 2025 through the humanitarian plan that provides dignity and security. This is the third flight of migrants landing in the country in the past 2 days. It is known that the migrants who arrive in a U.S. plane will go through a process of criminal and medical check and then be taken home directly. Let us remember that these migrants who have returned to the country in the last few weeks have been victims of the fascist plan of the U.S. government, which is developing a plan of persecution and kidnapping against Venezuelans who are in U.S. soil. In the United States, a federal judge ruled on Friday that Maryland fighter who was mistakenly reported to the prison in El Salvador must be returned to the U.S. by Monday, April the 7th. Gilmar Abrego Garcia was deported to a Supermax prison on March 15 despite a protection order granted in 2019 that should have kept him from being sent to El Salvador. He filed a lawsuit against several federal officials demanding to be returned to the U.S. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials blame an administrative error and an oversight for the Abrego Garcia deportation, but did not take actions to rectify the mistake. They argued that the federal government does not have jurisdiction since Abrego Garcia is in custody of the El Salvador government, and maintain that Abrego Garcia is dangerous to the community due to the alleged gun ties. Abrego Garcia's lawyer have said in court documents that he has no criminal records, a finding that the government has not contested. Panamanian teachers' trade unions have rejected the privatization of Social Security Fund and demand improvements in that system on the second day of their national strike. On Thursday, April the 3rd, these unions, which gather over 35,000 educators, opposed to the reform of the Social Security Fund. Subsequently, educational calls for an indefinite strike as they had not received a response from the government. In this context, at least 6 people were reportedly arrested in Panama on Thursday for demonstrating against the recently approved law of the Social Security Fund. 2 leaders were detained by the National Police in the city of Colón, while the other arrests occurred in the area of Cativa. In this regard, the teachers' unions, the presence of the National Police at the mobilization, calling an act of intimidation. Let's take a very short break, but remember you can join us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. The government of Honduras confirmed the participation of dozen officials in the 9th Summit of the Community of Latin American Caribbean States, CELAC. Honduran President Xiomara Castro held a telephone conversation with her counterpart from Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, and Guatemala, Bernardo Arevalo, who ratified their attendance on the occasion of the upcoming summit on Wednesday, April 9. Castro extended a fraternal welcome to the head of states and governments who have confirmed their participation in the 9th CELAC Summit. Among them, she mentioned the governors of Brazil, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, Colombia, Gustavo Petro, Bolivia, Luis Arce, and of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum confirmed her participation in the upcoming summit of the Community of Latin America and the Caribbean States in Honduras.
I'm going to the CELAC summit on April 9th. I'm going for a short time. I won't be able to stay the whole time. We are defining the schedule to see if I can make it to the inauguration. It's on April 9th. So I would be in Tegucigalpa for about 2 hours or so. To accompany President Xiomara and President Petro, who assumes the presidency of CELAC, and other presidents of Latin America and the Caribbean who will be present.
On Friday, the Mexican government announced the investment of almost $2.6 billion in 2025 to strengthen food self-sufficiency. Speaking at the usual morning press conference of President Claudia Sheinbaum with journalists, Secretary of Agriculture Julio Verdeguer explained that the initiative inserted in the Plan Mexico will begin with providing support for 300,000 small and medium-sized producers. In addition, Verdeguer informed the government seeks to increase the production of white corn, beans, milk, and rice, all fundamental goods. The Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples for America's People Trade Treaty, TCP, revealed on Friday that the 7th meeting of ministers and head authorities on tourism of the bloc will be held in Cuba on May the 3rd. The event will bring together the authorities of this sector and will be held in the context of the 43rd International Tourism Forum 2025 to be held in Havana between April the 30th and May the 3rd, with China as a guest of honor. The venue will be at the Morro Cabaña Historic Military Park, where the exhibitors and representatives of the tourism sectors will meet to strengthen trade relations and promote different destinations. Some of the main activities will be the participation of the parade of the International Workers' Day on May the 1st at the Revolution Square and the closing ceremony at the Tropicana Cabaret in the capital. This space will be favorable to discuss strategies, implement tourism, multiple destinations in the region, strengthen alliances and unity. These meetings, promoted by the ALBA TCP Executive Secretariat, were held as a part of the agreement reached at the 24th Summit of the Bolivarian Alliance held on December the 14th in Caracas and were associated to the 2030 Strategic Agenda. The president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, affirmed that Latin America is seeking new opportunities with the tariffs imposed by the U.S. The Colombian president explained that his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, is coherent with his national tariff formula, which seeks to develop domestic production. However, he will have to lower the interest rate in dollars. In this context, he explained that if the interest rate is high, there will be no productive investments in the world and a recessive wave will emerge. He also added that capitalism in the U.S. now seeks to move towards the kind of national monopolization of commerce. The U.S. 10% tariff threatens to aggravate the economic crisis in Haiti, putting thousands of jobs in the textile industry at risk. Haiti's textile industry has historically relied on duty-free market access, thanks into the trade agreements such as Hope and Help. These agreements have been instrumental in allowing Haiti to export products duty-free in 2023. Clothing exports accounting for more than 80% of the total supported thousands of jobs in the country. U.S. banking fall after China's response to President Donald Trump's tariff war. Shares of major U.S. banks plunged sharply following the announcements of global tariff by the U.S. president and suffered a new fall after China's response to Trump's trade war. According to the bank's index, J.P. Morgan Chase fell 5%. Bank of America fell 4.3%. Wells Fargo fell 3.5%. Citigroup fell 4.6%. Goldman Sachs fell 4.8% and Morgan Stanley falls a sharp 6.1%. Experts economists have said that these measures might lead to higher inflation and demand for loans might be awakened. It should be noted that this situation has heightened fears of a possible recession and consumer disruption. The U.S. National Weather Service has issued a potential tsunami threat warning after a strong earthquake was recorded in Oceania. The 6.9 magnitude earthquake took place on April 4th at 20:05 local time off coast of Papua New Guinea. The U.S. Geological Survey reported that the focus of the quake was detected 194 kilometers east-southeast of Kimbe on New Britain Islands at a depth of 10 kilometers. So far, no casualties or damage have been reported. Let's take a last break, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on our most recent events. We found a short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Russia and Cuba signed agreements on cooperation in health and science within the framework of the 65th anniversary of the reestablishment of diplomatic relations between the two nations. During the event, delegations from both countries held discussions on economic, commercial, and scientific technical collaboration that are key to Cuba's development. The agreement includes the creation of a young laboratory of artificial intelligence in technical system of the Russian-Cuban Research Center, in addition to 13 other cooperation documents. It should be noted that the signing of the agreement also takes place at the 22nd meeting of the Intergovernmental Commission between the two nations. The meeting was held between Cuba Vice Prime Minister Ricardo Cabrizas-Ruiz and his Russian counterpart Dmitry Chernyshchenkov. The government of Russia and the allies of Sahel states, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger established a strategic partnership in order to maintain cooperation on the security and defense issues. Russia, together with the Sahel states, undertook that they intensified their efforts to fight terrorism and instability in all its forms in this country. So for its part, the Russian government assured through a communique that it will keep fighting for the territorial integrity of the countries of the islands and expressed that they agreed to strengthen the capacities of the joint military forces. In Palestine, more than 2 million people are on the verge of starvation due to the Israeli blockade. Experts point out that Gaza faces an unprecedented humanitarian disaster after the constant attacks and threats they received from the Tel Aviv regime. According to the UN organization, half of the population of Gaza is starving because of the Zionist army has been blocking the entry of food since March 2nd. Meanwhile, the Palestinian health authorities informed that in the last 24 hours, at least 86 martyrs and 287 wounded arrived at a hospital in the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Prisoners Club denounced Friday that Israeli prison authorities have increased torture and ill treatment of Palestinian detainees since the end of the ceasefire in Gaza on March 18. The spokesman of the organization, Amjad al-Najjar, accused the Israeli Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, of introducing more than 100 orders and regulations against Palestinian prisoners since the beginning of the current escalation of violence in October 2023. Palestine, the Tel Aviv regime ordered the evacuation of the eastern areas of the city of Gaza. In intense bombardments and bullets of fire, the Zionist occupation extends its ground aggressions in northern Gaza. Local media report that Israeli troops began their incursions of the Sud Haya and Zaytun neighborhood, forcing the inhabitants to leave the area. The continuing Israeli siege has left no safe place for the inhabitants of the Gaza Strip, forcing the displacement of around 280,000 Palestinians since the ceasefire broke last month.
We move in every war. Enough pressure. We left in the 2008 war and in all wars. Until now, we move daily from one place to another. Enough, my God, enough. Look at us. We are exhausted and tired.
We are civilians and our situation is difficult, and we don't know where we will go. My children are scattered all over the place. This is out of our hands. I pray to God that all this will be resolved. We don't know where people will go. Enough.
The Netanyahu administration aimed at abandoning and seizing the Gaza Strip by means of the Merak corridor and the Israeli occupation forces' large offensive on both northern and southern Gaza. The Merak corridor consisted in placing a military barrier to split Rafah city with shared borders with Egypt from Khan Yunis, southern city. In addition, the Israeli forces have scaled their air and ground incursions. The Lebanese government rules out the possibility of any normalization or political dialogue with the Israeli regime, aims ongoing hostilities against the nation. Lebanese Foreign Minister Youssef Rajid said that the nation does not have the military capability to confront Zionist forces despite the good performance of Lebanese troops in southern regions. The diplomat urged the international community to increase pressure and implement the UN Security Council Resolution 1701 in order to achieve peace, stability, and the full withdrawal of the Israeli army from Lebanon and a return to the 1949 Armistice Agreement. We have come to the end of this brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram as well. For the Listen English, I'm from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.
What is happening in China? Everything you want to know